I have been in London now over 20 years. I am Brazilian. I went to study at Royal College of Art, and then some things happened a bit by accident after. I was making short films for MTV, and I was also I started to work for Wolf Hollins as a junior designer, and I was there for 13 years, became the executive creative director for London, and then, you know, things happen. I'm a partner at Pentagram now for 6 years, I think. So I have always been a combination, since the Royal College of Art, which is an amazing experience. I've been doing a combination of film and design, and as a partner I run a team which does both. So we create, you know, branding, graphic design, and film, moving image, digital, a bit of everything. I think I love you know, so many projects I've been working on. I really enjoy, you know, I'm very lucky. Today at Pentagram, I can almost just work, I practically just work for things I really love. But there is one that was a tipping point for me, which was doing the Tate identity, because it was an incredible opportunity which came by, you know, we were pitching and they chose the route I was going for. So I was very lucky that it was very special and different, and I loved what they did. And so it kind of, after that, things changed in my work, I think, because I started to create a bit more of my own voice as well. The way we work, there isn't let's say a formula or anything, but I guess there is a common way of approaching things, whether it's film or whether it's branding or graphic design, which is always very much based on finding the core idea and what you're trying to express. And if you're working with a client, you have to really try and understand what the need of the client is. And that is combined with a lifetime of collecting ideas and photographing and sketching and all of those influences and being very curious and looking at things all the time, which is what I'm going to talk today about in the talk. Collecting thoughts and ideas and being inspired by everything around you, then is combined with a process of trying to find what is core and what is the fundamental idea you're trying to express. And that theme then informs all your decisions, whether it's a film, a brand, a poster, a book, whatever it is. I don't know if I can be specific about the tools. I use all kinds of tools that you can possibly imagine, from analog tools to digital tools, and Adobe is the whole suite of Adobe. It's a natural part of how we work, and it's seamless. You don't even think about it. I don't know of one tool that is specific, because I'm not so technical, but I am very connected with what technology can do as a result, I guess. And I work with a team that supports and is very nerdy, so I'm lucky to have that combination. But I think those tools are just natural part of the way we work. I think for any creative work, and if you're becoming a designer, an architect, a filmmaker, a furniture designer, a branding designer, any of those, it's just really important to be always curious and to collect ideas everywhere, from children, from literature, from film, from, you know, things you find in everywhere in every day, in shops and like hardware shops and very silly things. It's the everyday objects are very inspiring. So it's I think there is no myth about being some kind of designer, filmmaker, doing the genius thing on their own in the corner. They have to incorporate the world around them, and that's what we do all the time. So looking around and being open to be influenced, being a bit like a sponge, is the way that we work, and it's becoming more and more important in our times as people want to be engaged and participate. They don't want just to be told what to do. I want to say a couple of them. A creative is nothing without imagination. A creative is also nothing without integrity. No, I think it's it must be both exciting and scary to be starting a design career in our times, because there's so many opportunities, but it's a time where everyone thinks they can do everything in a way and can design. So there's AI replacing human beings, there's all those things. So I think it's a great opportunity to be much more innovative and imaginative. And at the same time, it's the world is in such a it's kind of in such a challenging times with many problems happening, from Brexit to Trump to all these different things going on, and the responsibility of designers is much bigger, but it's also the opportunity for design to help find solutions. It's a very special time, very exciting, but it must be quite overwhelming as well. As a young designer coming in, I expect you to be really connected with what is going on, and also be able to use so many different skills and be technical but also artistic. It's much more challenging in many ways. Hola. Hola, hello. I'm Marina Willer. I'm a partner at Pentagram. Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting. Thank you everyone for coming. I can speak a bit of catastrophic Spanish, but I might save you from that. I remember once I was in Madrid, actually, to do a job many years ago, and everyone was waiting, and when I came in, I wanted to say that I was embarrassed that everyone was waiting and the attention, and then I said, yo estoy embarazada. And then everyone, oh, congratulations. And so I prefer not to do that again. Anyway, I thought I'd speak a little bit about how I work and the things we do and how we collect ideas and how we go about it. So the idea of main thing is because I heard recently that someone in Silicon Valley said something like, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. And I thought, oh, this really resonates, because when we are successful with what we do, when we get it right, whether it's a brand, an identity, a book cover, or a magazine, or a film, we're really focusing on what is the core idea, message, thing that we're trying to express. And every decision comes from there, without being simplistic, but having some kind of north where we're going. And sometimes, and also recently, for example, I went to the Biennale in Venice, and there was some of the pavilions were incredible, and some were confusing. And when they were confusing, it's because they're trying to talk about everything at the same time, and there was no point of focus. And the incredible ones had a very strong appeal, a very strong point of view that you could recognize. So I think in every area, whether it's architecture or product design or anything that works. And when I left my previous job, before I became a partner at Pentagram, I was the main creative director of Wolf Orleans in London, which is a bigger agency. And I left very much because obviously Pentagram was such a wonderful opportunity, but I wanted to do the things that I cared about. So it was also looking for my main thing and not just doing all kinds of jobs I had to do because I was employed by a company that was owned by a group, and you are kind of always fighting to find your own space and your own identity. But the risk is when you are, I found this, it's not mine, but that every day looks like this if you're not careful, and you can't even remember what you were supposed to do. I'm sure you sympathize with this, and you find this, and when you're running your own studio, because Pentagram is lots of partners, but it's almost like a lot of startups, so we don't have big, planners or management or anything. We really run our little studio like it's a small studio very much, and then all the partners with their studios add up to one bigger conglomerate, not very big. So anyway, I think you always have to be reminding yourself what is it that you're trying to do as a priority, what are the jobs that you care more about, but also with each job, what is the core idea behind it so that you can express it properly. But in terms of method of working, and if some of you are starting, each of us has their own ways, but for me, I'm always collecting things, not literally physically, but looking around, being extremely curious, drawing, sketching, taking pictures, and from all kinds of streets of life. So from, you know, the DIY shop, as we say, on the streets, all the way through, you know, looking at poetry or literature and things which are more you know, highbrow, let's say. But I think everyday objects are really, really inspiring, and you find inspiration everywhere if you look. So I'm always taking pictures of all kinds of subjects. So, for example, pipes. I love looking at pipes. My husband always says, when we're traveling in beautiful places, why are you looking at pipes? It's ridiculous. And also finding colors in the environment, finding the way that things age with time, finding compositions which are sometimes incidental, or maybe they are planned by someone, but you could almost see a bit of a Mondrian there, but it was someone making a pack. So also I play a lot with my children, and we create things, and we, for example, we make blobs of ink, and from those blobs they find what animals, what characters, what are those blobs, and they create creatures, and sometimes they might draw based on something, but otherwise we just make ink happen and accidentally become something. We do a lot of prints with, you know, like with, again, very accidental ways, and all of these experiences for me are very inspiring, and they are for them as well. So that, for example, they did the blob and let the ink run, and then they said he was a little man with a big willy. I don't know if everyone understands, and a long leg. And this I found in their school. I don't know which child did it, but it's supposed to be René Descartes, the philosopher. And I love the expression because it's so scared of life. And I think children sometimes get this so right, you know, because imagine everything that was going on in his head. And it also reminds me of the work of amazing artists like William Kentridge, for example. So I think there is something very special about the child mind, which is, for me, always a source in a way of keeping myself inspired. We make monsters as well with recycled boxes, again with the blobs of ink. Then they find patterns that they think are born out of that, and more monsters. And we've been doing their sketchbooks, and I do my sketchbooks. I've got twins. They are now 11, so a bit bigger, but we were doing this all the way up to, you know, we still do it, but a lot of these pictures are up to when they were 9 or so. Also finding colors on the streets. Some of this is in Brazil, where I come originally from. Again, the compositions, those are like cool boxes, which people in Brazil, you put tape to protect, but then why would they choose those incredible colors? I'm always fascinated. And then there is another bit that is more deliberate, which is going to very inspiring places, like you come here or you go to a museum. And this is a place in Brazil. If you ever go to Brazil, I really, really recommend. It's called Inhotim. And it's the most incredible arts foundation in the middle of the jungle. And it's got modernist buildings, and these are pavilions, each of them for an artist. Some are Brazilian, others are from all over the world. So the one on the top left, for example, is by Doug Aitken, and it's got a hole. It's a circle, like a building. It's got a hole of 1 kilometer down, and they amplify the sound, and then you just hear, it's like the roar of a bear or something. It's just the movement of the plates in the earth. And I think it's just so poetic and incredible that it's such a simple idea that you can communicate in this really powerful way. And it reminds you of your connection with everything around you. This is by Eliasson, and it's, again, it's in the jungle there, and it's like a kaleidoscope, gigantic kaleidoscope. And then just being with beautiful nature, landscape design, architecture, But then the contrast is just looking, like I said, the DIY shops and making palettes of colors from the baskets and buckets. Also looking at how things are done accidentally when people paint windows to protect from the birds, or the wood when the posters come off, or they paint to mark areas. I always wonder if these things are deliberate. Also how with time posters fall off the wall and form new patterns that no one controlled. So the idea of not controlling everything to me is very important. And for example, here we did a workshop recently at what design can do in Holland, and there was a real client, which is a charity that helps people to defend themselves, to do with data in this time and era that we live in, because our data gets out of control electronically in the online world. So this is a small charity that protects individuals and helps them understand their rights. So we had a huge table with lots of things that you normally use for bureaucratic work, like those things, stickers and stamps and all kinds of things. And they had to create a solution in a couple of hours with those materials, verbal and visual, and just being really hands-on is so refreshing. So no one had a computer. The chosen one is on the top left, so it says, my data is mine, data is mine. And he just used the stamps and so on. So just getting on and not just working on the computer is really refreshing. Nothing against the artificial intelligence. I always show this is my trademark, is my children, the twins, and when they wake up in the morning, they have the crazy hair, and I love the idea that you can't control that. Every day is different. So again, I always think about how we create things as designers and artists or whatever, and how we should incorporate change and let life come into it, and people use things and not try to be too rigid and controlling, because there's a real beauty in things that we can't predict. Also love the way that people write their own messages on the streets. So you know Selfridge is the shop. These two guys in Little Street in North London have a shop that sells fridges. Then all this poetry that people come up with, Fry Nemo and Sherlock Holmes and Abracadabra and Indiana Bones, all these things, and The Godfather. You know, I love when there isn't too much control and things are natural and made by real human beings. And sometimes when designers get in the way, they can ruin all that poetry. I also love looking at weird stuff that people do, and all kinds of, and asking myself, why would you not do it like that? And so constantly looking for these crazy images that show how we are not thinking of in the same way, and there's different logics going on. This is a guy sleeping in a car. Why not? This is in Brazil, or protecting from the heat. This is in São Paulo, traffic jam, and how people negotiate their way. I mean, this is very Brazilian. And then also very Brazilian, the notion of security and health and safety. And then there's, all of these things you keep collecting, and then they influence your way of thinking, and they show the beauty of craziness. And then I'm going to show a bit of my work now, and then we'll talk a bit more about one thing at a time. But I'm just trying to show a little bit of how all those things are constantly there, and somehow in a magical way they inspire the things that we end up doing. And so I'm going to show a quick compilation rather than picking one or another project that has a bit of everything. I do a lot of systems and identities for a lot of them is arts and culture or not-for-profit. So again, talking about the main thing for me, it's been a real pleasure to be able to work for things I care more, and they're not big financial companies, they're mostly charities, social or artistic things. So I'll show a bit of that, and then we carry on talking after. Let's see if the sound is going to be good. We could raise the sound if they can from there. Thank you. Thank you. So there's a very broad range, but I think what connects them all is this idea that you find the theme, and you also work for things that you really care. But since I joined Pentagram, I've been finding myself doing more and more exhibition design, things that are really fascinating, and even Ferrari, which is unexpected for me, because they invited us to pitch, and I said, look, I don't really know anything about Ferrari, and back to the point, I'm not actually interested in Ferrari. But they liked that because it would maybe show a different angle and not such a masculine angle, I'd imagine. But I think we have a broad range from very tiny jobs. So the book that I did, for example, that we printed as rubbings of the street covers, which are things that we create at Pentagram with no commercial intention, all the way through to bigger brands like Tate, that is 20 years old now. So a lot of the brands is just creating the system rather than the specific. We create the beginning and the first applications, and then we let them get on with it and do, use more or less that framework. And that's why the more flexible the framework, the more chances of the whole thing succeeding. Because if we're true controlling, it doesn't work, because people want to create as well and engage with things. So that's why I think looking around and absorbing what's around you is really important, and trying to create frameworks that are quite open. And not like in the old days when designers were seen as some kind of genius in a room. I think that's all gone, because we definitely are not. I think we're just working together with people and creating things collectively, which is a real privilege, actually. So I think, if I was starting design today, and if anyone is starting, I think my advice is to try and find the things that you really care about and try to work for those, because it's such a complex world now with so many paradoxes and weird things happening as well. I think when you work for what you care, you're going to be a lot more passionate, and produce work that is amazing. So that's the way. And sometimes you have to go back to what is it that I liked doing when I was a kid, and what are the things I'm passionate about. And I was just remembering then my very first films, because I do design and film, and after I went to Royal College of Art in London, I started to make short films, even though my background is as a designer. And I made some really low-key films, but I think they show very much still my personality in a way, and character. So I'll show a couple of those that are just 1 minute long, and then they ended up being shown to, or sold to MTV and VH1 at the time. So this is one of them, hopefully.
Hey, come down.
Excited for us, alright. It's a long time no see.
So this is, thank you. So this was done, it shows my age probably, in 1996, so much before American Beauty, in case anyone remembers. American Beauty had some plastic bags flying around, and we did it before. MTV even tried to sue them and everything. But we did a series of little, very low-key films. I would have a friend as a camera, or myself, and they were all about what I was calling the music of things. So the next one, I'll just show two today, is using household stuff, if it works. Oh, it didn't work? Will it? Yes? Yes? No, no, sorry. Bit of drama. Thank you. So I think in a way this shows that all that passion for looking at silly stuff on the streets somehow comes in and the out of control, and all of that informs the work that you end up doing. If you are interested in silly films, there is, you can see a lot more of them in my Vimeo. And then I'll show you, this is a little book, a pentagram we do between all the partners. We've got offices in New York, in Berlin, London, etc. And we own the company. It's very independent. There's no kind of fancy stuff. But we create books that we give to our friends and to our clients. And at we meet every 6 months, all of the partners, and we decide which book we're doing for the end of the year, like holiday or book or Christmas card. So I had been collecting the phrases from my twins until they were 9 and the questions that they asked. So I proposed this in a very kind of philosophical design. It's a little book like this, and then it goes like, and they chose this as a piece. So the questions are a bit like questions that every child asks, if you can be bothered to write it down. Is it dark inside me? How do I know if I'm awake or I'm dreaming? Which is quite philosophical. Do bacteria have legs? Do spiders have armpits? What happens when you don't have a skeleton? Is it like a blanket that wants to be a tent but has no legs? Why do some women have beard under their arms? If I have testicles but I don't get married, do I get pregnant? Can I have a gorilla ice cream? It's vanilla. What's inside a mosquito? Is it racist to call someone a scientist because they wear glasses? Do people with different eye colors see the world differently? Is Mummy having a midnight crisis? Is epiphany a migraine? Why do we write important things between brackets? And were the Greeks Romans? Is love magic? And does my heart beat faster now that I'm 6? Last ones, I think. To cure a person with depression, do you tickle them? Why is life so painful? And are black hole and white hole friends? When women give birth to do their bellies explode? Sorry, I said, oh yeah, that's my favorite one. Can granddad still see grandma naked now that they are divorced? And can children use gentle floss? Why do people eat strangled eggs? And why do they make augmented reality? Why do we drink soil milk? Soil? And why did you didn't? And then, sorry, before I jump to the next thing. So again, if you collect the things from every day, you always have ideas in your head. And that's not looking at designers' books and those things, because I think that doesn't feel very inspiring, actually. It's just looking at everything that is around you. And the less sometimes intentional, the more useful they can be, or funny, or interesting. We also do, apart from this sort of serious work, we're always trying to think about the world around us, just to finish, I'm getting there. And for example, I come from Brazil. There is an election this weekend. If anyone here is Brazilian or has friends, or even if you're not, you would be caring, because it's a bit like the guy that might win is a bit like Trump. So everyone is terrified, because it's a bit like having Pinochet back in Latin America or something. He defends torture, and he defends violence against women and gay people, and he's racist, everything you can imagine and more. So we all have been doing interventions on Instagram. So Pentagram has taken this. Me and my team, they've been doing this. Is from my team, not me. You know, every day a different one. This is from a girl, Portuguese, lovely girl from Porto, and this is a Chinese guy. So everyone's showing their solidarity and caring about democracy. Oh, I put it in the wrong place, because this is the last page of that book. Makes it a bit unexpected, right? So that was the end of the book. Okay. And then the last project I'm going to talk about is because, as I mentioned, I think the world is so overwhelmingly weird at the moment. And you think about climate change, you think about Brexit, which for us is tragic and stupid, and you think about all the refugee crisis and how people are being treated, and there's so much migration, and then people being treated like animals, and it just feels like we're going back to times before the Second World War almost, and that is quite scary. So I think at Pentagram a lot of the partners try to do other things besides just the commercial work. And I always wanted to make this short film about the history of how my family, or my dad, they came from Europe as survivors of the war, Jewish background, and then they were one of the only 12 Jewish families who survived in Prague, Czechoslovakia. And they managed to go to Brazil and start a new life, and we have the most diverse, mad family that is like a fruit salad. And that is so wonderful when the world incorporates, and how much we've learned from these different influences. So I wanted to make a short film about that, and try and celebrate the beauty of diversity. I was lucky that as I was doing my Kickstarter to get the funding, a producer from New York saw the little video I made and got really excited and thought it was looking beautiful, and decided to support, so that it became a feature film. So we have made the film. It's on Netflix now. It's been a little bit in cinemas, and we've had really amazing reviews, which is very lucky. If you are interested, you can watch it on Netflix, but I'll play the trailer first. So this is some images from the film, and maybe if you can make it a bit darker, that would be amazing. For so many years, I've wanted to tell the story of my father and his father. How both of them were forced out of Europe for their Jewish origins, and how they ended up in Brazil, how they became migrants. As my children grow and my father gets older, for me time grows much more precious. Somehow it's become urgent to tell my father's story. It's a story not only of my family, but of so many others.
I have never understood an attachment to one nation, one culture, one origin. Our origins are many. Our journey is utterly unpredictable. We are a mixture, and in this there is beauty.
Today I see so many migrants on the move again in Europe. They're put to sea in tiny boats. Sometimes they drown. Children, parents, grandparents.
My father is a child. Other children in the neighborhood throw stones at him and call him Jew. In the face of stones, he walks to school. He studies. He grows. I draw the scene in colored pencil. I select the color red for my trees and reveal for the first time that I'm colorblind. We're in shock. A year before, I'd attended a Jewish summer camp. Now, all the friends I made there have gone, sent to concentration camps, never to return. I'm the only one left. With each day that passes now, our chances of survival diminish. By the end of the war, we will be one of only 12 Jewish families remaining in Prague.
My father cannot imagine what waits for him in Brazil. A nation of color where trees never lose their leaves, and leaves are always green. In the years after World War II, Brazil will embrace millions of survivors from every village, ghetto, and bombed-out city in the old world. Jews, Czechs, Germans, Poles, Italians, Russians, Japanese, Hungarians, Austrians, and even Nazis. This is a land where native peoples, Portuguese settlers, and former African slaves coexist. All survivors of epic journeys who have never forgotten how to smile.
Vovo, are you a Jew?
Well, no, I'm Jewish, I'm Protestant, Catholic, Czech, German, Brazilian, and English. I'm everything. What a salad.
Thank you so much. If you're interested, you can watch it on Netflix, and you can follow us and see what's going on. I think I think I have to go, but advice to you is follow your heart and do the things that you are really passionate about. I mean, I never thought I could direct and write a feature film, and it happened, and it was very scary, but it's important to go out of our comfort zone as well. Otherwise, we just repeat ourselves. So, yeah, and thank you. Thank you. I hope to see you around.